Father Augustine Wetta, Benedictine monk and author of Pray, Think, Act, and Humility Rules. Welcome to Reasonably Rational.
Thank you. You forgot to add expert on humility. Oh, wait, well, you mentioned the book, so that's...
That's right. The subtitle of Humility Rules is what? Authentic self-esteem?
Self-esteem, yeah.
Yes. That one I don't have with me, Father, because my oldest son, Michael, who's a fan of your books, brought that with him to college. So that book is currently
Oh,
residing in Escondido, California.
oh man, get him to get me out there to speak so I can
Oh, that would
surf. I'll do it for free as long
that
as
would
they'll
be
find me a longboard.
That would be good. I is as like the San Diego area, does that have good surfing? I'm not. I myself am not a
Yeah, I
surfer.
believe it does. Isn't Huntington Beach near San Diego?
I in like
It's closer to
California.
It's closer to Los Angeles, but I think it's... Well, I could look it up. I know the beaches, but I don't know how really I can drive there, but I don't know where I am at any given point.
So yeah,
I
my
know
my.
inner city Los Angeles and I know the beaches, but that's it.
Well, you pretty much got it covered at that point. Yeah, my wife is actually from Huntington Beach. I think
Oh,
I don't think in terms of California, I don't think it's all that far. Which means if the freeways are in good shape, it's probably like an hour. If they're in bad shape, it's
yeah.
3 hours. So SoCal
Yeah,
style there.
yeah, San Diego's got surf.
Okay,
It's
well, good.
better than whatever it's got, it's better than Missouri surf. So,
Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin originally, so yeah, you could say the same thing. I don't know if you can surf on the Mississippi River maybe or Lake Michigan, Lake Superior. I don't know.
so you live now in California.
No, I am. My wife is from Huntington Beach. We
Oh,
are in
okay.
Phoenix, Arizona. I'm from
Oh,
Wisconsin
okay.
originally, but we met and married out here. So yeah, in the desert, sweltering.
Which is full of Californians now, I
Oh my
understand.
goodness, it is Father. You have no idea. Apparently, someone said more Californians are moving to Texas than to
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yep.
Okay, but it's not like there's not a bunch of them moving to Arizona.
I'm from Texas, and it's very, very disturbing to most of the Texans
Yeah,
because in Texas, one out of every three drivers is armed. So when you smart off and cut someone off, you're really taking your chances. There's a reason why Southerners are so polite to one another.
that's right. That's right. So in Texas, 1 out of 3 drivers is armed. The other 2 are from California.
The other two are not going to be around for very long.
Right. They're living on borrowed time.
In
Oh
my
God.
hometown of Galveston, actually, while I lived there, two guys got in a fight at a stoplight, and shot each other dead.
Wow. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
right.
even think it made the news.
It's frontier justice in Texas.
That's
Listen.
right. The mayor of Houston got in trouble. Remember when there was that big freeze? Oh no, in Dallas, there was a big freeze, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
everybody was stuck. And the mayor of Dallas got into trouble because he said, "Look, if this kills you, you weren't meant to be here to begin with." And they reelected him. So
That's- he speaks for his people.
that's right. That's the way we roll in Texas.
So Father, you'll appreciate this then, since you're a native Texan. Back during the whole COVID craziness, when everyone went nuts and the world shut down and whatever. Uh, Babylon Bee, which is like a little
Yeah.
satire website, they put up a headline which said, "Governor of Texas says that all Californians moving to Texas must self quarantine for 35 years."
But you don't want an old hippie in charge. It's not fair. I like Californians. Say about them what you like, but they know they know they've got it good. They feel gratitude. So, but I will say that a couple of the other younger monks and I make a penitential pilgrimage every year for selling out the holy people of God that year. I really think shutting all the doors of the churches was one of the great sellout mistakes that we've made. I
Father,
have a friend. Go ahead.
no, keep going. I'll give my thoughts when you're done. You see,
Well,
I'm nodding my head.
yeah. Well, I have a friend from Nigeria named Patrick Nokoye, And I called him during the whole hoo-ha, and he was like, "Oh, you Americans." He's like, "In Nigeria, we just say another plague and we get on with our lives." Like, and I'm convinced that's what we should have done. Of course, well, I don't know. People kept asking me to say something on social media, and I've pretty much alienated myself from every social media now. I have a Twitter account, but I just said, look, I'm not a bishop, and I don't ever want to be, and I'm not a doctor, and I don't have time to become one, so I'm just going to do what I'm told,
Yeah.
you know. But I kind of wish I'd had a little more courage, or at least written some angry letters or something.
So you do a penitential pilgrimage in
18
reparation.
miles from
Wow.
Creve Coeur, Missouri to the cathedral, no, to the Shrine of St. Joseph. Yeah, it nearly kills me every year.
Wow. With Parkinson's too. Holy cow.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to do it this year. Yeah, for the record, it not only left me with a tremor, but it left me with a bit of a speech impediment. So if I sound like I'm drunk, I'm not drunk yet. I'm just Parkinsonian.
uh yeah, it's um the whole
Yeah.
the whole
How do you answer that?
the whole COVID thing. So my wife and I were just 100% non-participants from day
Yeah.
one. Part of it was I
Good
came
for you.
across some very clear and quite compelling counter data early on, and part of it too. In all honesty, like one of my first encounters with the whole COVID thing was, so we've got 5 kids. So there's 7 of us here, which means there's 7 backsides to wipe. And I don't know if you remember, but the toilet paper crisis was like
Oh,
this huge thing in the run up. You
yeah, I
couldn't get,
remember that.
and so I was sitting there thinking, I'm not worried about this. Like we're all healthy. If we get something, it'd probably be a bummer, but we'll fight through it. And I'm like, but here's the problem is everyone's panicking. So guess what I get
Yeah.
to do? I get to go out and try to find toilet paper because other people are panicking. I'm like, so I went and I saw 2 ladies, probably in their 50s, maybe. I saw them get in a fight in the grocery store over toilet paper. And I was like, this is
Nice.
going to be absolutely nuts. Whatever,
Did you
wherever this is.
steal their toilet paper while they were
Yeah, that's
fighting?
right. Yeah, I should. Excuse me, ladies. I'm just going to go ahead and take this. There, now you don't have anything to fight about. See?
Yeah.
I hope you've both learned your lesson. No,
Yeah.
thanks for saying that, Father. And thanks for doing that it was as the laity who also can't do anything about it and who are just like a hard no from the jump. As we were talking to people, because, we have friends that kind of initially sort of went off the deep end and then they kind of boomeranged and like, maybe this wasn't quite as horrible as it was supposed to be, and maybe we need to eventually get back because everyone we know has lots
Or
of
better
kids.
yet, maybe it wasn't as horrible because we all took the vaccine. See, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, well, for where the church was concerned, I was like, hold on a second. Um, I can't. The Catholic Church is closed. Like for the first time in 2,000 years, the enemy's been
Mm.
trying to get the Catholic Church to close every day
Yeah.
for the last 2,000 years, and this
Yeah.
did it. It was amazing. And then like unanimous, Western Europe, United States, can't every dies. I'm
Mm.
like, this is bonkers. And then someone was saying, well, we didn't really know what this was. I said, but we knew what the church was. We knew what the
Yeah.
Eucharist was. We like that was the moment when the church should have thrown her doors open, kept all the lights on, and said, hey, everybody, you've been running away from your own mortality forever.
Yeah.
Come and meet
I
the one who conquered death. He
well,
resides here.
well, easy for me to say because I was hiding in my cloister sterilizing doorknobs and countertops. But I mean, I'd rather die than be without the Eucharist. And we that what a sign that would have been.
Yep.
Uh, and I have I was just gonna have a close friend. My sister is a geriatric nurse, and she was like
Oh,
the one group that would rather die than not see their family. We have completely isolated. She's like, and then she was part of all these online nursing groups, and they're all giving each other advice like, "Oh, she slipped in the shower. Just say it was COVID, because then you'll get money for it. Oh, so she says, I can't trust the statistics. I don't. Yeah, anyway, she took it because she's a nurse, the vaccine, but she said I wouldn't give it to my kid. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but
Oh
then
well.
again, I'm not a doctor, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's in the
Exactly. Yeah.
past.
Hopefully we all learned our lesson, and when the next thing comes along, we'll just say, yeah, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing here. Though it's
I
yeah, it's
hope.
when it's a bad
Well,
look when the
yeah, I don't. Well, there was a group of parents here in St. Louis who were going to, because it looked like coronavirus has come back twice.
yeah
And,
yeah yeah.
we
That's
got sick, we got better, so I got the flu. Um, but they were going to sue the Archbishop under canon law for access to the Eucharist because the laity have a right to it, right? And so they said, would you help sponsor this or whatever? And I said, I will, but first you have to get permission from the bishop to sue him because, you don't know what kind of pressure he's under. And
yeah.
it turns out he was like, oh, please. Like, I would love to be able to say, look, I would close the churches, but I'm being sued.
Wow.
So it turns out like, he, well, anyway, all things under obedience. That's my thing.
Yep. Well, I mean, as a Benedictine, that's written into your DNA. So, yep.
As a Catholic, it ought to be. I mean,
Yeah.
it's from whichever side of the aisle you stand. Without, we decided to have a Latin mass here at the Abbey, Latin Novus Ordo, by the way, not
Mm-hmm.
Vectis Ordo. Though
Mm-hmm.
everybody under the age of 50 says it. So, but the bishop said, please don't. And the lady were all upset. They're like, he can't tell you what language to. And I said, look, being obedient isn't just about doing strictly what you're told. Like, I don't know what he's up against. I don't know what problems the diocese has that I could be pouring gasoline on some fire I don't know about. So let's just do what we do a lot of Latin around here. Let's just be joyful, get Jesus, and be reverent.
Yeah. 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 There's definitely wisdom in that, and it is true. I mean, of course, I'm not a bishop. I don't know what they're up against, what pressures they have to face, and the decision on who advises them too. So it's like, yeah. But
Well,
like I said, hopefully we learn from stuff, and
yeah, an interesting thing was I was complaining to a friend. Remember the Pachamama thing
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Francis, where these Native American women came in and stood up a pagan statue in the Vatican and danced around it and offered it. And anyway, I was complaining about it to a friend of mine who happened to have been there, and he said to me, "Look, yeah, it all happened the way it looked on television. Like, but afterwards, Francis took that Franciscan aside and ripped him a new one.
Oh,
Like,
really?
said, how could you put me in a position like that?" I said, really? He goes, no, I don't know that, but you don't know it either. He's like, you don't know what happens behind the scenes. So before you judge Francis, like, just, yeah, he's like, I don't know whether that happened or not, but it might have.
Right,
And
right,
you and I would never know because Pope Francis isn't going to humiliate these Native American women on international news.
right, right, right. Yeah,
So, I
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so he made up the story, but I like to think that Francis had it out with the whoever it was that was responsible for that.
We'll never know this side of heaven. That's a good reminder. So,
Hey,
hey, Father Augustine, since this is your first time on the Reasonably Rational podcast, uh,
oh right.
give us your autobiography. Introduce us to
Oh man.
Father Augustine Wetta.
Uh
And there's a million things we can talk about after
yeah.
that. But
Well, we had
who are you?
a shout out to Basil Damakaitis, by the way, who was in the novitiate with me. He's now working, I think, for Catholic Charities or something. But he, oh shoot, I totally forgot. Oh yeah, he used to say, "Well, enough of me talking about me. What do you think of me?" Like that. It's so I hate doing this part because it doesn't really matter who I am, but I understand that you need to know. So, let's see. I grew up on an island in the Gulf of Mexico called Galveston. I'm a Texan, though I don't have a Texas accent because Galvestonians have their own accent. Uh, I went to Rice University, where I studied ancient Mediterranean civilizations. Ran off to Rome and was there for a little while, where I met my first monks. Came back to the U.S., went to grad school for a bit at University of Pennsylvania, but I wasn't a very good archaeologist, so I decided to apply to grad school in St. Louis. And when I got here, they said, well, we'll give you money, but you have to be a Missouri resident. So I established residency, during which time I discovered the monks of St. Louis Abbey, changed my mind, became a monk. They sent me to Oxford to study theology, where I missed one of the great opportunities of my life. This has nothing to do with my biography, but I met Roger Bannister, who
Oh,
broke
really?
the yeah, he's a Catholic, and he broke the 4 minute mile, but he was 86 years old. But the great missed opportunity is I never challenged him to a race. I could have beat Roger Bannister in a race, but I never thought to challenge it. Or I could at least have, he might have, I could say he was too cowardly to race me
That's
or
right.
something. But anyway,
Father
I also,
Augustine Wetta, the man who strikes
yeah,
fear in the heart of Roger Bannister.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. But I also met there Walter Hooper, who was wonderful little eccentric little guy. A friend, he was C.S. Lewis's executor of his estate,
Oh, that's right. Okay,
and
the name sounds familiar. That's right. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and a
Wow.
convert to Catholicism. And he actually, how I met him is kind of funny. We were at a sherry, and I I like talking to people, but I don't like small talking to people. So he and I ended up sort of awkwardly in the corner watching everyone else small talk. And he leaned over and he said, "You see that woman across the way?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Isn't she beautiful?" And I said, "No, actually, like, I think she's kind of homely." He goes, "She's my goddaughter." I was like, all right, Walter Hooper, you and I are going to have to be best friends, because this is either going to end with that or with a fist fight. And so every Sunday he would take me to the old parsonage, and we would have quail's eggs together and disagree about things. But
Starting
before
with the attractiveness of his goddaughter.
oh gosh, man, remind me never to give my opinion on things like that. Um, but oh yeah, and then when I was ordained, he and Priscilla Tolkien wanted to get me something, and they said, "Well, what do you need?" And I said, "You can't buy me anything, but I want something that belonged to your dad and something that belonged to your boss," which is how I came into possession of C.S. Lewis's pipe holder and J.R.R. Tolkien's scarf.
Oh my
Which,
goodness.
if we do this again, I'll remember to bring it with me next time.
Wow. Oh,
You
that's
can, if you
so
come visit
cool.
me in St. Louis, you can wear his scarf. Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, that's awesome. So you got a J.R.R. Tolkien scarf. Now, do you smoke it? Did you
Yeah.
take up pipe smoking just so that you could put something on C.S. Lewis's pipe holder?
I really should, because somebody who knew, a friend of mine locally who knew about it, made me a pipe with a dragon's claw holding the bowl of it. But unfortunately, I'm allergic to all the things I could be addicted to. So
Oh well.
I haven't taken up smoking. Um,
You
I
can
mean,
just
I'm addicted to my fingernails, and they're not even addictive.
you can
So,
hang the scarf on the pipe holder.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, it's just a little tiny bowl with a little hole. Actually, I think it's actually a match holder, but whatever.
Either way, yeah. You don't smoke,
Yeah,
so you wouldn't know.
yeah.
So you were in Oxford for how long? And,
So a little meth never hurt anybody. I mean, I'm from the meth capital of the world, Missouri. We love that stuff out here. Sorry, go ahead.
you have to be careful that no one steals it from you then. Like, oh,
Yeah,
sweet, a meth
well,
holder.
I can only it's become this running joke with the pharmacy, because, like I said, I'm allergic to everything, so I take Claritin D like it was popcorn, and they're always asking to see my ID, and I keep saying, "I promise I won't make it into meth. I promise." And then it's become this thing like, "So how's the meth fundraiser at St. Louis Abbey going?" And anyway, That is actually the very pharmacy where I got the idea for humility rules, because they had a little shelf of self-help books, and one of them was entitled The Teen's Guide to Self-Esteem,
Hmm.
subtitle Learning to Love the Most Important Person in the World.
Oh boy.
And I took it off the shelf, and I turned to the lady behind the counter. I was like, this is the worst advice. The this is the worst thing you could ever tell a teen. They already think they're the center of the world. Now you just upped the say. I went on, and finally they gave me the book and asked me to leave. Um,
Go
so I
back to
still have it
making
on
your
my
meth.
shelf, though. What's that?
Go
Yeah,
back to
they're
making
like,
your meth,
here.
Father.
Yeah, a little more meth would help your attitude, Father.
You're like the Benedictine Breaking Bad, Father Augustine.
Oh yeah. Ooh. I was writing a zombie apocalypse for my students set in a monastery, but maybe I need to shift the emphasis to drug dealer. I'm sure it's happened.
Well, they always say write what you know, right? So,
Yeah, right. Okay. Oh.
all right. So you're in Oxford. You meet Walter Hooper. You end up with a scarf from J.R.R. Tolkien and a pipe holder, or possibly match
And two
holder.
degrees, and then I came back here, taught classics, English, theology, coached rugby, coached the losingest rugby team I think maybe in human history. We had a 20-year losing streak,
Oh my
which
gosh.
was, yeah, which actually put an end. Well, while I was there, we managed to have a season that was 4-4, and that was the year we tore down the goalposts, because it broke that 20-year losing streak and started a 10-year losing streak.
Oh
These
yeah.
little
Time to start a new streak.
We've got the world's coolest chant, though. You can look it up online. We had a Nigerian coach who taught us this war chant. They go Zabu Zabu Enyeba Enye Zabu Enyeba. Any Nigerian knows the elephant song.
So you would do the Nigerian elephant song, a
Yeah,
war
all these
chant,
little white kids.
and then step out on
Enyeba
step
Enye Zabu Zabu.
and then step out on the pitch and get your
And
butt
get
handed to you.
creamed, yeah. Although one year we had a guy on our team named Ben Knoll who went on to play football for the Dallas Cowboys,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, I think that was the year we broke even, actually, because we had this play called Ben, which was hand him the ball, get out of the way, and let him run it down the field. I have a photograph of him dragging 6 kids across the try line.
Uh,
Good Catholic kid, by the way.
that's awesome. So he actually went on to play. What position did he play when he was playing tackle football?
Lineman.
Okay.
And he was huge. He was 6'4" and 280 or something like that, and all muscle. The calves like hams. It was like, I when he came out for the team, I said to him, "Look, Ben, I wouldn't risk my college scholarship for rugby. If you get hurt, like that's the end." And he goes, "Oh, Father, these kids can't hurt me." like,
that was
and they couldn't. It's
that
true.
that was the day that Ben the play was born.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a
Well,
new go-to
we
play.
yeah, we also had a couple of trick plays that worked every now and then, but that was it.
That's great. So you teach at the Abbey actually has a school, is that correct?
Yep, it's
How that
called the
works?
Priory School because when they first came over, they were a priory, and then
Hmm.
the school gained a national reputation, and then we became an abbey, but they didn't want to change the name to the Abbey School because it was known as the Priory School, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we're the only high school in the world with a medieval arts department.
Really?
I'm proud to say, yep, we teach calligraphy, stained glass, mosaicism, and iconography.
Oh, that's
Plus,
beautiful.
we offer 6 years of Latin, at least 3 years of Latin for every kid. The smartest ones get to translate the Gospel of John their senior year,
Mm.
and they all read the whole Bible, take church history. A little pitch for the Priory School out here in St. Louis. Move out to St. Louis and come to our school.
That's
Send your boys.
that's amazing. I love that medieval history department. That's so. Have
Isn't
you
that
had
cool?
any
Medieval arts department.
medieval arts department? Have you had anybody come through your program that went on to make a career of one of those things, like stained glass or
Well, two of them
iconography?
became monks, so they teach now. One of them teaches stained glass. Um, I'm trying to think. The thing is, there is no way to make a career of it any longer because each tiny square piece takes 20 minutes to make. You've got to, well, they or so they tell me. So you really can't make. No one can make a living this way anymore. That's why we have these big, clunky, ugly stained glass windows in all the churches,
Yeah, yeah.
because there just isn't the time. Although here at the Priory School, we have a full scale replica of the Jesse tree window from Chartres that took the kids 16 years to make.
Oh my goodness!
The teams of 30. Yeah, it's
Wow,
really pretty amazing. You should look it up. Priory School stained glass. It's pretty amazing.
wow. Is it
And
so?
then
Is
the
that just
architect
framed somewhere, or is that in the
it's
church at the
in the
Abbey?
entryway to the school, and then the architect asked for a second one. So you got two, say the life of Saint Benedict, which is based on the other window. Our brother Simeon, who of happy memory, he died last year, God bless him. He refused to let the kids do any original artwork. They had to reproduce something ancient. He said, when you go
Hmm.
out on your own, then you can start doing your making up your own stuff. But for now, you've got to, originally he was a tiny little guy, about 5'7", and he had a horrible spinal deformity, and he was not what you would think would be a popular teacher type. He wasn't the jock. He didn't coach any sports, and in fact, he wanted to be the gardener.
Hmm.
He came to St. Louis, but he had a degree in art history. So when the monk who was teaching calligraphy died, they asked him just to step in. So he decided to make the class so hard no one would take it, which completely backfired. And even to this day, to be in the calligraphers guild is one of the most prestigious things in the school. In
Hmm.
fact, it may be the most. And you have to create a masterwork. We don't have any in here, I don't think. No, but yeah, and by masterwork, I mean like I should. Well, you can look it up yourself, I suppose. But
Priory
it's
School.
pretty amazing. Yeah, the things that these kids make. I mean, like a wall size reproduction of the Book of Kells, the cover of the Book of Kells, and so on and so forth.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, when you expect a lot of kids, they deliver a lot.
That's right. That's amazing.
But you have to be. I was given. I was preaching to the missionaries of charity, and I never actually say what I intend to say when I get there. But I was reminded. When I started teaching, I was given two pieces of advice by Mr. Suarez, who was about to retire. One was a really good piece of advice. One was a terrible piece of advice. His terrible advice was never work harder than the kids are willing to work, which is, I wouldn't do any work at all.
Right.
Um, but the other piece of advice, which I've treasured, is that he said there are 20 kids in any given class. Well, actually about 15, but anyway, he says of that 20, three will not learn anything. They won't want to learn anything, and they will misbehave the entire year. Do not get obsessed with those three, because there are 17 other kids in class who want to learn. And that's been helpful. I still obsess with the three kids and try to get them on board, but I don't. I try. It's good to remind yourself that the good kids want to need attention too.
That's excellent advice. I myself. So first of all, I was a seminarian for the Diocese of Phoenix for 2 years. They sent me to St. Meinrad, to the Benedictine Archabbey in
Oh
South
yeah,
Central Indiana. So
also good monks.
yeah, it was. I say this completely honestly. It was really a beautiful and transformative time there for me. It was. I will say, in fact, one of the things I was trying to think back on this actually. Somehow I got in a conversation about, like liturgy and celebration of mass, and it wasn't like one of those contentious liturgy war ones, but
Yeah.
someone, we attend a very, very traditional Novus Ordo, which is incense and, ad orientem and Latin. And it's so someone was asking me like, well, how did you kind of start drifting in that direction? Because I grew up in Wisconsin
Yeah.
in the 70s and 80s. Like Archbishop Rembert Weekland was my archbishop when I was a kid.
Oh,
And so,
brought disgrace on the Benedictine name.
so,
That man. Okay, well, okay, yeah. That's beyond my sphere of influence. I'm not going to say anything.
I bet, yeah. So anyway,
But I'm ashamed of him. Remember, Weekland. I'll say mass for you because no. Okay, go ahead, please continue.
but for context, that's what I grew up with, and so
Oh,
I was thinking about it, and I was trying
why do
to.
you boast of your wickedness, you champion of evil?
What is that
He,
from?
it ought to be from his autobiography, which he published after he was exiled from the ministry. Anyway, whatever. He boasted of his wickedness afterwards instead of repenting. But anyway, not my job.
Not
So
not
please
my
ask
circus.
another.
Not
You came from Wisconsin, and go
well.
ahead.
In this conversation, someone was asking about, like how if you grew up, how did you end up like such a big fan of traditional? I was like, in all honesty, I think it was Saint Meinrad. I think it was
Mm,
the Benedictines. That was it really was because I was before I went to seminary. I was down here in Phoenix by then, but I was a youth minister for a big Life Teen parish. So we
yeah.
had all the funny stuff and whatever, and I'd never seen anything remotely like a traditional liturgy until I got to minor. So I was like, I think that's actually
Yeah.
it. Looking back on it, I think that kind of began to turn the tide for me, where there's something about it where I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I didn't know that I
Well,
hadn't seen it, but this is it.
well, I mean, I'm just, my mother is an artist, and I'm just, yeah, I am in favor of good art. And I told Matt Frad, and he didn't believe me, and I caved under pressure. But I would say a mariachi mass, if you could find me a really amazing mariachi band, right? I think I would say Ugandan rite mass if we had a parish full of Ugandans. I just don't think West County white people are very good at holding hands and saying kumbaya. We're good at chant. We're good at sort of very formal, no touchy feely stuff. Uh, anyway, I've probably alienated all my conceivable audiences, but I just I'll I yeah, I like the Latin too.
It's yeah.
But
I, I
okay, and here I'm going to alienate the right too. I
okay.
think the future is the Novus Ordo in Latin.
I think that's quite likely to be true. So we happen to we're at St. Anne in Gilbert, Arizona. Our priest, our pastor, Father Keith Kenny, is like he would call himself a liturgy nerd. That is
Ah,
totally his jam. So he celebrates Mass Novus Ordo,
yeah.
Lat
Ad orientem.
yeah. Ad orientem, incense. His thurible is actually a miniature of the huge Bada Fumera one at the end of the pilgrimage.
San Juan
So
Capistrano.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's the biggest thurible you've ever seen, and it fits like
Wow.
5 charcoals in there. And he is not skimping on the incense. So when he gets that thing going, man, I mean, you have a hard time seeing him for a minute after he gets done incensing the altar.
I'm thinking of making a map. I know there's this Reverend Novus Ordo website, but there are all these priests all around the country doing this and
Yeah,
doing it right.
yeah.
I ran into a priest. I won't say which diocese he was in, so I don't get him in trouble. But he installed an altar rail for communion, but he had it Velcro on the bottom so he could take it out when the bishop came by. What I'm proud of him for is he asked the bishop ahead of time, and bishop said, "Yes, just don't let me know you're doing it." Wink, wink.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but see that's the way to do it. Our old abbot Luke used to say, there's always a way to be obedient and do whatever you want. Like, you can always do both.
Just be creative and follow the proper protocols and channels.
That's right. That's right. Because without obedience, the whole church falls apart. It
Yeah.
really, even when you, well, yeah, no, it's
No,
where Peter is, there's the church, and that's that.
yeah, no, that's true. And if you throw obedience overboard, at some point you're Protestant.
Well, yeah, and I know there are a lot of people who say Lefebvre was a hero, and he wasn't really excommunicated, and he came, and all this stuff. But I can't help but wonder, like, what would have happened if he had been obedient? Like, could he have come back, you know, 30 years later and reinstituted the Latin Mass?
Yeah.
Instead, he causes all this confusion in the church.
Yeah.
Now that said, like, I have some of my best friends are SSPX guys. They come by and they stay in our monastery from time to time because we're friendly, and they say mass in my office because we can't let them say mass in the church, obviously. But I've built an old rite chapel in my office. This gives you a sense of who I am. And so they say mass there, and we have tea afterwards together. And in fact, and we were drinking tea, and they were going off on the new mass. And one of them said, "Look, you gotta admit it's stupid and ugly." And I said to him, "All right, it may be stupid and ugly, but it's my mom you're talking about. All right." So he goes, "Fair enough, fair enough." Like, my mom may be stupid and ugly, but she's still my mom, and I owe her love and obedience.
And she's not as ugly as Walter Hooper's goddaughter.
Oh, by the way, his goddaughter is actually a beautiful woman. When she was at Oxford, she wore these weird horn-rimmed glasses so that people would think she was ugly because she wanted to study and not have parties. And so it was on purpose. She's gorgeous. I I discovered later, but too late to apologize.
She was undercover. That's brilliant. Oh,
Well, she deliberately wore these weird, ugly horn-rimmed glasses so that guys would leave her alone, which is pretty
beautiful.
cool, actually. Yeah, I know. Like, kind of makes you think I missed out on something.
That's right. Well, I mean, obviously it worked. That's
Yeah,
your your
yeah,
test
you're
your
right.
testament to what a brilliant strategy that was.
That's right. Yeah, that's good. That's a good
So
point.
I
Yeah.
wonder then if Walter Hooper basically spent her entire time at Oxford trying to convince people that the girl with the ugly glasses was pretty, and no one would
Yeah,
take him up on it.
it never occurred to me. I wonder, like, why would he say that to me if he weren't? Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
Good old Walter.
Father, you referred to meeting your first monks
Oh yeah.
when you were over in Oxford, and then
Huh.
again in St. Louis. So, what was your original trajectory? What was your plan? Because you're a surfer and an artist and all kinds of stuff. Like it doesn't sound like the plan from day one was, oh yeah, I'm being a monk. That's my thing. That's what I'm doing.
You know, the funny thing is, I think that was the plan from day one. I just didn't know it. When I was little, I used to say I wanted to be a Jesuit, which drove my parish priest nuts. Like, he really just hated that. But I thought I had heard they were smart, so I wanted to be a Jesuit. And by the way, a shout out to my Jesuit friends. Not only is there a new generation coming up through the ranks who are amazing, but as I sometimes tell people, like, we pay these guys to work on the edges. And if some of them fall off every now and then, that's, I think, to be expected, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but
That's an interesting way to put that. I'd never heard it said that way, but yeah, that's an
I mean, they
interesting.
have a very dangerous job
Yeah.
working out there, like investigating heresies and other religions and other philosophies. And sure enough, yeah, some of them have found it so convincing they've flipped. But, you know, I mean, that some of us are meant to be in a cloister and some of us are meant to be out there fighting on the front lines. So I'm happy to just lob grenades over the wall. Yeah.
So
spiritual grenades.
so you think it was the plan? It was all of the plan all along.
Oh, right.
Yeah. What were you? Yeah.
Well, then I hit
Walk us into
puberty.
the vocation
Yeah.
story a little bit. I'm interested to hear how that came about.
Well, then I hit puberty and all that changed, and I decided I did not want to be a priest after all. But then, the plan was to take Latin and Greek in college, and I figured you can always move forward, right? It's harder to move back. I could go into medicine or law or whatever I needed to do. But I really got into it, and I decided to become an archaeologist. And long story short, I was studying at the Intercollegiate Center for Classical Studies at Rome, and then I worked a bit on an archaeological dig in the Forum, which was pretty cool. Backfilling, which wasn't cool. But stop me if you've heard this story before because I tell it all the time. But
No.
I would take the bus from the Forum to the Vatican for Mass. Ironically, at the time, I considered myself an atheist, but I didn't want to burn my bridges. I figured I was as bad of an atheist as I am a Catholic, but worse. I was a worse atheist than I am a Catholic. But where was I? Right. Oh, yeah. And so on this bus, this was like the favorite spot for pickpockets because all the tourists would get on the bus from the Forum to the Vatican. And so you got to know who the different pickpockets were. And the thing is, they have a job to do, and that's to take advantage of tourists. And the tourist job is not to be taken advantage of. And there's this sort of sense in Rome that they have a right to their job. Like, so you don't, when you see them at work, you don't say to everybody, hey, pickpocket on the bus, everybody watch out for this guy, But what you do if you want to do something about this is you walk up next to him and you shove him into the person they're trying to pickpocket. And that way the person says, oh my gosh, and he knows, they know he knows. He gets off at the next stop. No harm, no foul, nobody gets hurt. But there was this monk on the bus, and I was sitting in a seat watching him because at that point, that was the very first monk I had ever seen. And I was amazed because I knew they were in the movies, but I didn't know they really existed anymore. And he was looking out the window kind of in a daze, and the pickpocket was getting ready to pick his pocket. So I thought, well, this is my chance. So I got up and I shoved the pickpocket into him, and the monk just completely didn't notice. So the pickpocket goes at him again, and I shoved him again, harder this time. And the monk just swayed further, like looking out the window. So the third time I went to shove the guy, and the pickpocket looks at me like, this guy's an idiot. So I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, excuse me, scusi, questo è un borseggiatore. This is a pickpocket. He's trying to pick your pocket. He goes, are you an American? I'm like, yeah. He's like, me too. I'm like, well, this guy's trying to pick your pocket. He goes, yeah, I know. He's like, but I don't have any pockets. I thought it was funny. And I thought, I got to get to know this guy. Like, what, there's a power here that I want. And he and I became pretty good friends, actually. We're still friends. And
what order is he from?
Well, all monks are Benedictines.
Monks is only Benedictines. Okay.
Yep. Otherwise, you're a canon or a friar. But if you're Trappists are technically Benedictines, and so are Cistercians. So
okay.
They, if you're in the West, if you're in the East, they're just celibates because there are no other religious orders, I believe, besides monastic.
So Benedictines and their offshoots are the only ones that are called monks.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And we're actually not even a religious order technically because we don't have a superior general. We're not ordered from the top down. We call it the Order of Saint Benedict because it's ordered by a rule. We don't take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience either. So, yoo-hoo!
What vows do Benedictines take?
We take a vow of stability, a vow of conversion, and a vow of obedience. So poverty and chastity are not part of our deal.
Wow.
Though they are implied. No, I'm joking. They are implied by the vow of conversion. So,
That's interesting.
um,
Huh.
but some monasteries can be quite rich, and we don't take a vow to live like the poor the way say Franciscans do or Dominicans or mendicants.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, up until the 60s, and I think this is a great tragedy, there was a monastery that had white gloved waiters at all of its meals because they drew primarily from the nobility. And so for them, this was a huge step down. Like this was asceticism,
Mm-hmm.
not to have their own stuff. And I thought, I mean, I wasn't around for it, but in retrospect, I think it was a shame that during the 70s, they said, oh, none of this elitism stuff. But I think there's a witness there that rich people can be holy too, that there is room in the kingdom of heaven for rich people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to pass through the eye of a needle. I mean, at least give them some
Yeah.
white glove service at work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually have a friend, shout out to Dan Hill. And so his son became a Jesuit. But aside from that, he's cool. He was a real, really successful businessman, like internationally. When I met him and his son, he was buying a business for $19 billion. So
Okay.
give you a sense of the level he works on. And he was in a terrible car accident and he was in a coma for a week and a half. When he came out of the coma, his partners had robbed him for everything, taken everything.
Oh my goodness.
And he realized that he had spent more time with them than he had with his family, and that he was doing something wrong with his life. So he got on a plane and went to India to seek enlightenment and got in a taxi and said, take me to one of your holy places. Well, the taxi driver was a Catholic, so he ended up at Mother Teresa's place in Calcutta. And
Oh boy.
the sign on the door said, Mother is in. So he thought, well, what the heck? He knocked on the door and she answered the door and he said, you're Mother Teresa. She said, yes, I am. She's like, what do you know about international property law? He goes, it's my specialty. She goes, come in, I've been waiting for you. And he straightened out all of her houses in Europe. And he, at the end of it, the reason I'm telling you this story is because at the end of it, he said, all right, I'm going to send for my family. We're going to sell everything, come to Calcutta and work with you. And she said, absolutely not. She says, if you were a great violinist, I wouldn't tell you to go sell your violin. You are a great businessman. Now go back and bring Jesus to those people because no one else will be able to do it.
Mm.
And he did. He lived in a castle he kept his business in the United States, but he moved his family to England so that he would only be able to work so many hours a day. Because before a certain point, all the Americans were asleep, and after a certain point, all the English people were asleep. So he knew he wouldn't be seduced back into the high-powered sort of me
Wow.
scene. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then he made a vow never to make a business deal he wouldn't take himself. And he
Mm.
said the first couple of negotiations were awkward because he would say, if I were you, I'd ask for a little more in this area. And he said people thought he was trying to rip him off. He's like, but then he got this reputation for being a square dealer.
Yeah.
And by the time I met him, he was making virtually all of his money just telling other people that the deals were good or bad.
Mm.
So, yeah, anyway,
So
Dan Hill, great man, great fun. Funny story, but he invited me to his place in what is the famous resort in France on the Mediterranean? Saint-Tropez. He had a house on a cliff in Saint-Tropez with a swimming pool and with its own beach. And we would walk down the cliff to the beach, and there was a little cafe on the beach. And he is really into JP2's theology of the body, and he's like really into it. Behind him is this beautiful French woman sunbathing topless. I'm like, can we switch seats? Because I'm not hearing any of this, man. So it's become a kind of a running joke that wherever we go, we have to switch seats. Hey, I'm sorry. These are
No,
you're gonna have to edit all this stuff out of your
I
podcast.
love it. I love it. This is why I'm talking to Father Augustine Wetta. You're one of the best storytellers I've ever heard. I love it.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
that's the fact that Mother Teresa greets him by saying, "Yeah, I've been waiting for you."
Yeah, yeah,
How mind blowing is that?
yeah,
But like totally on brand for her. It's like, yeah, she's
yeah,
probably been praying, Lord, just deposit an international business law specialist on my doorstep because I don't know how to
yeah.
find one. So you find one, bring him here. And then she's like, yeah, okay, good. You're the guy.
Well, he's working on his autobiography, so I guess I'll make a pitch for that. If there are any publishers out there who want a cool autobiography, um, but after one of his first gigs for her was that there was this um, city official in Albania who had finagled it so that the sisters were renting their property from someone else, and then he ended up owning it, and the sisters ended up in debt because they didn't know they were renting it, and he was going to kick them out of the right. And he said it was all legally done. The
Hmm.
nuns just were clueless, you know. So he said, "I'll take care of this." He said he rented a private plane, and he got two young people at his business. He said, just wear a suit and bring a briefcase. You know, it doesn't have to be anything in it. Just come with it. He got off the plane and the official was waiting for him. He said, I had him crying within 30 minutes. Like, and not only did they get the property for themselves, but they got a pension for the convent.
Wow. Uh,
Yeah.
that is funny you don't think of that perspective on things sometimes, but how true is that? That we're each given gifts. Obviously, we have abilities, we have aptitudes, maybe passions that hopefully sync up fairly well with what we're actually good at. Uh, but yeah, just the fact that there's a legitimate calling from God to some people to be, yeah, like
Yeah.
that, an international business law expert, a guy who buys and sells $1 billion businesses, just like there's another guy who's called to be a baker or something. That's
Well,
interesting.
I say mass for the Missionaries of Charity here in St. Louis once a month, and I always joke with them that they work with the poorest of the poor, and we work with the richest of the rich, or the poorest of the rich, however you want to say it. But I also like to say that without rich people, poor people would really be out of luck. I mean, it's somebody's got to underwrite all these charities, and they're rich people, so don't knock them too much.
Right. How did you end up in St. Louis? So you were doing archaeology in Rome, and then
Right.
and then
Well,
going to mass in the Vatican as an atheist on the bus with the pickpocket, and you met your fellow Benedictine.
yeah, he offered me a job working as a janitor in his monastery. And then when I came back to the States, I went to the University of Pennsylvania and was taking language, doing a sort of post baccalaureate program. And so I applied to a bunch of grad schools, and my advisor was like, the only issue is how much they'll pay you. You can go
Hmm.
anywhere you want. And turned out I got rejected everywhere except for the University of Missouri Columbia, which offered me a position, but only if I was a Missouri resident. So that's how I ended up in St. Louis.
And then you ran
I've
into
been rejected by some of the greatest graduate schools in the world.
no matter what else happens in life, they can never take that away from you.
No, that's right. Princeton, Oxford, Harvard, Yale. Yeah. All the big names have rejected me.
So obviously,
Ironically, I ended up at Oxford by becoming a monk, but that's,
that is
yeah.
kind of funny. Yeah, that was you got there by a more circuitous route than you
Yeah.
maybe initially intended. And then how did you come across the Benedictines in St. Louis?
Well, that monk that I met on the bus, when I ended up, I was in St. Louis taking Greek and waiting tables. And I was talking to the monk on the phone. He goes, hey, there's a monastery in St. Louis. And sure enough, I started spending time here. And the guys are just ingenious, gentle, noble Englishmen. One of them had been a special forces commander during World War II, and another
Wow.
one had been a sniper in Malaysia, and now he's published 18 books of poetry. they're all these fiercely eccentric Englishmen, but also really gentle and wise and real men too, which I thought was kind of cool. Um, and at the time, I had a very well. I sometimes say for brevity's sake, a fiance, but the truth is, I had given her the previous Christmas. I had given her a pair of earrings, and she went. And I went, no, not yet, not yet. So it was that sort of stage. But she was runner-up Miss Oklahoma, and she had beautiful eyes. And I used to, during Greek class, because I hate Greek. Well, no, I don't hate Greek. I like Greek. I just not very good at it. But I'd get bored and I'd start trying to draw her eyes in the corners of my notes. And then I started visiting the monastery. And at a certain point, I realized she was a charismatic evangelical, incidentally, and she had a vision that I was going to become a monk. And she was very disturbed by this.
Wow.
And I said, "Don't worry, no chance of it." But I did
Were you
look at.
still an atheist at that point?
No, probably not. I'm an atheist at this point most of the time. It's it scandalizes my students, but I tell them, yeah, most of the time I do. Yeah, I wake up in the morning, I think back to prayers. I'm just self-indoctrinating. Am I just here because I've put in too many years to turn back now, or But on the other hand, if I so they say the kids ask me like, do I know that God exists? And the answer is no, no, I don't. But I definitely know that 2 + 2 = 4. And yet, if a gunman came into the school and said, admit that 2 + 2 = 6, I'd just say, all right, 2 + 2 = 6. I don't care. But if he said, admit that, I don't know, the spaghetti monster is God, I hope I'd take a bullet. So I don't know where I stand on this really. I guess I have more confidence in Jesus, but less confidence in my intellect or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
But anyway, so the end of the story is, well, the middle of the story is that I looked at my notes and I had quit drawing Beth's eyes. And I had started drawing little pictures of monks. And that's when I realized I was starting to fall in love with the monastery. And sure enough, that
Do you
the
still have
next
that
fall,
notebook that chronicles the
huh?
shift from Beth's eye?
Yeah, I don't know. It was my Greek notes. I wonder if I'll have to look. I'll have to see if I can find that. Yeah, good point.
Someday, Father, the postulator for your cause to sainthood will be going through your effects and will be, yeah, like right about this point in his semester of Greek, I think, is where he found
Yeah, I want to be
even.
the patron saint of broken technology or
Oh,
lost cell phones. I've lost more cell phones than it's like. Well, anyway.
I'm more technology goes to die. It's kind of a joke, but I've had more experiences with tech people where I'm in the room and we're trying to do something. I can't tell you how many times I've heard like a totally tech savvy person say about whatever technology they're trying to use with me there. Like, I don't, it never does this.
How
It's
did you do
always, yeah,
this?
how did I, what? I'm that guy. I'm totally that guy.
I'm the guy who they say, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" I go, "Oh,
So okay, I am going to tell this story, although this is your interview, but because
oh, good."
you'll appreciate this then. So 3 years ago, I'm up on our roof putting up the Christmas lights. So I'm
This is great already. I love this
yeah,
story
it's just
already.
so
This is going
I'm
to
up
work
on
into one of
yeah,
my
I'm up on the
sermons.
roof, and we live in a 2-story house. So I'm like I'm up there, and I've been hanging off the side to get them all secured to the side of the house, and I get to the end of I don't know we don't have like one of those National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation how it's not like Clark Griswold, but like maybe a couple thousand lights or something. I get to the end and I'm about to plug it in and see like okay, here it is. I've been up here for like 3 hours. I get to the end and I know I've got female end and female end,
Oh,
and I'm like,
oh.
oh, you've got to be kidding me. Like, duh. And so,
Oh no.
so no, so here's where that I tell you that part to tell you this part. So I'm up on the roof, just
Oh
bitter at
man.
myself. I'm like, you
Yeah.
moron. Who does that? So I'm like, well, I know what I have to do. I'm not
You need
pulling
to
all
buy an
these.
extension cord.
Yeah, I'm not pulling these back off the roof and
Yeah.
reconfigure. I'm like, so I'm gonna Ace Hardware is literally 3 minutes down the street. I'm like, I'm just gonna go down to Ace Hardware. I've got two female ends. I'm gonna buy a double male end adapter.
You
And
can't do that.
aha, see,
Even I know you can't do
this
that.
is the level of
You make
moron.
it light your fire.
This is
Good God Almighty.
this is the level of moron you're dealing with here, Father. So I get in my car and I drive down to Ace Hardware.
I know nothing about technology, and I can tell you.
I go
Go ahead.
I go walking in and I'm in the electrical aisle and I don't see any double male end adapters. I'm like, what the heck? So you know how Ace works. It's like all these salty old dudes who are like,
Yeah,
professional electricians
yeah,
for 40 years and now they work at Ace. So I go
yeah.
find Ron. He and I have basically become friends over the years since. I find Ron, this salty old fella. I take it and so I start telling him my story. I'm like,
Actually, you would get anything.
oh
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
I'm
You
up
wouldn't
on
get
my roof.
anything out of
So
it.
I'm like, do you guys have a double male end adapter? And God love Ron. He looks at me for a second because I think he was probably trying like, is this guy joking? He's not seriously acting for a double male? And I'm like, and he's like, no, actually, if you did that, you would burn your house down.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
he's like, no, we don't sell those. And if you ever see one, don't buy it. And
Don't
so,
buy it.
and so I'm standing there thinking, I am the biggest moron. Now, so here's the thing. All right, so I am the least tech savvy, the least handy. Like I'm the least competent man with like man stuff. I'm not a cars guy. I'm not an electronics guy. So I'm like, just out of penance for my stupidity, I have to send out a group text to my buddies because they have to hear this. So they have to be able to just laugh at what Steve did.
Yeah.
So I send the text, and they're just I mean, and hilarity ensues. I'm taking all kinds of crap as I should. So here's the thing though, where this whole story ends up. The next year, so it'd be 2 years ago.
Oh no.
I'm at home. It's Advent. Advent. My buddy Dan, who's a professional HVAC tech, sends me a text. He's in Ace Hardware, and he sends me a picture of a sign that they have taped to the end of their
We
electrical
do not
aisle
have.
with a double male end adapter saying, these do not exist and don't make them yourself. These are an extreme fire hazard. And so Dan.
Wait. Is that because of you, or
That's what
because you're not the first?
yeah, he texted me and he's like, "Do you think that sign is
Wow.
because of you?" I'm like, "I certainly hope so." So I went and I found Ron again. I actually asked him, like, "Ron, what was that sign? Was that for me?" He's like, "No." He's like, "You have no idea how many
Yeah. How
people
many people?
he's like, every
Golly.
year we get the double mail into town." I'm like, "Oh." In a way I was relieved, but I also kind of
Yeah.
wasn't because like I kind of wanted that to be my, like, here's your sign.
Yeah.
You're a total knucklehead. So yeah. Anyway, I
This
don't even
has
remember
no
why I started telling
relation.
that story.
Is it? Yeah, I don't know why I'm telling this one, but it's funny. My dad is a historian, and he had to read Mein Kampf for one of his classes, so he went to Barnes and Noble, and they had it, but he didn't know where, so he went up to the front desk. He's like, "Look, I'm looking for a copy." She gets on the overhead, says, uh, "History to the front desk. There's a gentleman here who wants to read Mein Kampf." He's like, "Stop."
Heads are turning.
Didn't even
Women
stick
are
around to
hugging
see if
their
they had
children.
it. Yeah.
Uh, oh,
Anyway, where were we?
you were now drawing monks in your notebook and beginning to think,
Oh
oh
yeah.
gosh, maybe this is the direction this is heading.
Yeah, it's funny. Our old Father Luke used to say that when he was a novice, young men would show up at the monastery hoping they had a vocation, and they were disappointed if they didn't. And now they show up hoping they don't have a vocation and are disappointed if they do, which is exactly my predicament. That I spent my first 5 years. Is that
That's my
me?
that's my phone.
Oh,
It's our home plate.
Okay.
So the same guy who asked for the double mail in
Answer
the
it. Let's see. Let's see what the person on the other end has to say. Let's do like one of those stand-up routines where they put the
Try
person
that.
on the.
I'll see who this is.
Uh,
Hello, this is Steve.
Put 'em on speakerphone.
I think this might be my son. Hello?
Why didn't anyone else answer?
Are you on the phone?
Father Augustine, this is my lovely wife,
Hello?
Becky.
Sorry, I'm hanging. I'm pulling
All
it
I
out
saw
right now.
was
If
a pair of black pants.
Cut it out. Cut it. Cut it.
now you have to like duck into the camera and actually say hi though.
See, this is the glories of live TV. Oh, hello. Oh,
I'm so terribly sorry.
no, we
I
did
tried
this
to
on
hang
purpose.
up on him, but he called again.
No. Father Augustine told me to answer it and put it on speakerphone so we could see who it was. That's our 18-year-old son.
I did 2 years. I spent 2 years trying to be a stand-up comic, and one of the best things is when somebody's phone goes off and you say, "Give me that." Okay, hello. And you put him on the mic, you know.
Yeah, I'm.
So we were gonna. I was
sorry.
thinking we could do
Hang
that.
up on him now. I'm so sorry.
You have the Catholic equivalent of your fly down.
That's right.
Your
Perpetually.
scapular is showing.
I know it's showing. I know I'm a total mess. That's just what else could possibly go wrong here. I'm so sorry. Back to you.
Oh no! This is fun. I enjoy it.
Well, welcome to Reasonably Rational, Father Augustine. You couldn't have known what you were
can call
signing
this
on
episode
for.
"Irreasonably Irrational."
That's right.
Unreasonably irrational.
That would be much closer to the truth. Yes, that's bonus content there. So you're saying you're Exhibit A of Father Luke's old maxim that now they show up hoping they don't have a vocation and disappointed to discover that they do.
Yeah, it's my advice to the novices when they show up. And by the way, St. Louis Abbey has been through a hard decade. That we lost a lot of monks over the last 10 years, had no vocations for a decade. And this year we suddenly have 2 postulants and a novice. So pray for them. Pray for, shout out to Jesse, Matthew, and Nicholas.
Jesse,
because they're,
pray for Jesse, Matthew, and Nicholas.
Yeah, please, because they are solid, intelligent, motivated, ambitious, cool guys, which is to get all 3 at once after 10-year drought is pretty exciting. But what I tell them is that there are 2. Well, now I can only remember one of them. We'll see if the other one comes. There are 3 things I always forget. Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Right. Oh, every monk I know who has lost his vocation, every priest I know had a secret. Like, you tell your superiors everything, and like, I do this. It annoys my superiors how much I tell them. Like, there are things they don't need to know, but I'd rather err on the side of safety, and that has saved my vocation more than once. And every priest I know had something they weren't telling their confessors, something they weren't telling their bishop, something they weren't telling their abbot. And the other thing is that, like, whatever you're starting, just finish that and be happy about it. Like, you don't have to become a monk. Like, the worst thing is to start off your monastic life saying, "Can I do this for the next 90 years?" Like, can you do it for the next year? Like, just ask yourself that. And if you can, then stick it out. You know, do the novitiate, but finish the novitiate and then leave. You know, there's a great Desert Father story about a monk who, they say a young monk had determined to leave the monastery. So he packed up his stuff and he said, "Tomorrow morning I shall leave." And he did this for 8 years. And then the temptation passed. And I think that's a little extreme, but then they were that way, the Desert Fathers. But there's a version of that, which is like, I'm just going to make it to the end of my novitiate. Just going to make it to the end of my simple vows. And frankly, as a solemnly professed monk, I've been making it till the end of this year ever since. But I'm happy. So, you know.
How long have you been a Benedictine?
I was trying to think of this the other day. I joined in 96, so that puts me at 28 years, 29 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I took my solemn vows on January 1st, 2000 at 9 a.m. So unless some jerk in the Cook's Islands beat me to it, I am the first monk of the millennium.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
You
I
did,
postponed my vows for a week and a half so that I could make sure that that happened.
did you also do that hoping that the whole Y2K thing would be true and that the world would just end
I'd
anyway?
be, there's another COVID. We
I
just don't
know.
learn, do we? I mean, it's just so silly. I remember when I was in high school, we were terrified that the Japanese were going to take over everything. And what happened to that? Now it's the Chinese. Who knows?
It's
I don't
always
know.
somebody. Yeah,
Yeah.
always somebody.
There's always something to be afraid of that you don't have any control over. Oh, I've got a shout out to Matt Abide, who gave me one of my first speaking gigs out in Bennington, Arkansas. They started a school, a classical academy, of course, a Catholic. The bishop was just in over his head. He couldn't help him, so they mortgaged their homes, bought a piece of property, found the diocesan exorcist to be their chaplain, and I got to speak at their graduation or matriculation or something like that. But this is all to say, this to make a long story longer. He drove me from the airport to the school, which was like a 30-minute drive, and about 5 minutes into the drive, he goes, I had a vision. I thought, oh God, not one of these people. Because that's a prayer, by the way. Not it's a pious eruption or whatever. Anyway, because for the record, Benedictines don't have visions, right? We ora et labora. We get in, we get out, we get the job done, we get on with our lives.
That's right.
Franciscans and Carmelites and Passionists have visions,
They
but
handle the mystical stuff.
that's right, yeah. But I was stuck in the truck with him, so I was like, "Really? Tell me all about it," And he says, "So I was in the Garden of the Apocalypse, and the dragon turned up." He says, "So I grabbed a flaming sword, and I went running toward the dragon, and I was just getting to him when St. Peter stepped out from behind a tree and took the sword away from me and said, 'Look,' he handed me a pair of pruning shears and said, 'Look, you go prune your corner of the garden. I will take care of the dragon.'"
Ah,
Yeah, I know. I said, "Matt, Ava, this is the greatest vision ever. I'm going to tell everybody."
that's pretty good.
Because
I like
it
that.
is, because there's so many, what's the president going to say next, or who's going to shoot whom or invade what, or, and I have no control. Or even whether we have a Latin Mass at St. Louis Abbey. I don't have any control over that. It's a dragon that St. Peter's just going to have to fight. I'm going to just. I remember was it? I think it was actually during the Pachamama thing. I was talking to our brother Basil, who is a layperson now. And I said, "Can you believe this is going on at the Vatican?" He goes, "What? The Pope has a bunch of illegitimate children? The Pope put his son on the throne of St. Peter? But what? Look, I'm just gonna go to Mass today and get on with my life." He's like, he's like, "We've been in way worse situations than this."
There's you actually alluded to earlier. You said something about it's not my sphere of influence. That whole model, like sphere of influence versus sphere of concern. I
Yes.
found that, so it's like your friend's vision, which is, there's a sphere of influence. That's the stuff we can touch and actually have some impact on, and that's limited. None of us can touch and impact everything, not even very much. But the
Yeah.
sphere of concern is like anything you can get yourself wrapped around the axle over, which is pretty much limitless. Like I can get all bent out of shape about what some German bishop said last week, and it's
Yeah. It's we have a not well, one of our postulants, Matthew. converted to Catholicism through internet memes. He
Really?
found them just convincing, and the more he looked into them, the more but he subscribes to something he calls the medieval grind set. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
The
No.
idea is that you live as a medieval peasant. You only concern yourself with things that directly affect you, that your friends tell you. You don't watch the news. If somebody gets whatever, you only listen to local town criers
Huh.
for your information. And well, probably for someone who does a podcast, it's not the best attitude, but for a monk, it's great.
And probably you do surprisingly well on that model. I mean, it's
Yeah,
probably
well,
surprising to find out the world doesn't end. You're not suddenly, destitute. It's like, yeah, actually, this is pretty good way to live.
well, and even stuff that isn't that important but worth your time. Like he knows that Charlie Kirk got shot, and
Mm-hmm.
which isn't anything he has any control over, but it's something worth knowing that the country's in this sort of a state, but he's not going to go listen to 30 different commentaries on
Right.
why and how and what weapon was used and where the guy was found. And I don't know. My sister quit listening to the news. My sister's a soldier, was a soldier, and she was sent to Bosnia. My mom says she doesn't know what happened, but her daughter wears combat boots and her son wears a dress. And like, we're very progressive. But she was sent to Bosnia, and she was military intelligence, and she was just an enlisted person, but her job was to put pins on maps for generals, which was really cool. She was top level security. But she said, when she turned on the news, she said, they got everything wrong. She's like, this is one thing on the news that I actually know about. And they got like the sides wrong, the religions wrong, the geography wrong. She goes, in some cases, they got the countries wrong. She's like, and that's the one thing I know about. How can I trust them on anything else?
Right.
And it's true. Like anytime they report on Catholic issues, it's like this priest got defrocked. Like I don't even know what a frock is. Like what does that even mean? Anyway.
Oh gosh.
I need to subscribe more to the medieval grind set.
The medieval grind set. That's an interesting. Well, I mean, as a Benedictine monk, you're in a good spot to give it a try.
Yeah, except I teach teenagers, so I end up hearing about things like Andrew Tate and Kendrick Lamar's latest rift with Derek or whatever his name is.
I don't teach teenagers anymore, so I don't.
I will say this though: Kendrick Lamar is a brilliant rapper. For the record,
I've never been able to warm up to rap, Father.
He is the first rapper in the history of the world to win the Pulitzer Prize. I took one of his raps and I scanned it as in like, as you would ancient poetry. Mm-hmm. And it is incredible. It's like A, B, A, B. The rhymes go like A, B, A, B, C, C, B, C, B, A, D, C, D, C, A, B. It's like all it's really pretty amazing.
So he's doing some high level stuff.
Yeah, he really is. Though I do not necessarily recommend listening to him unless you can handle a lot of foul language.
Just listen to him.
But that's the world he comes from,
No, that's.
Well, he has this one rap called I think the title is Money and Rep, and I first heard about him because I teach a class in ancient history and literature, and we read the Iliad. And I said, now you guys, you got to understand, this is a warrior culture. Everything depends on time and kleos, like your reputation and your stuff. And one of the kids is like, and so I say, when Achilles says, you've torn my honor out of my hands, he means that literally. He actually took something from him. Mm-hmm. And it's like that nowadays we don't think like that. And the kid was like, yeah, we do. And he's like, I've got this many followers on Instagram and he's got this many. We can measure my honor. Easy. And then he found this song by Kendrick Lamar about and the cool thing is, he starts off by saying, like, I was in a gang, I was in Compton, and it was all about money and rep, money and rep. He's like, but I got out of that place. Like, and I worked my way up to the top. And now he says, I hang out with politicians and supermodels. And he says, and he ends it with, and now it's all about money and rep, money and rep. Yeah. So he kind of, in Tassus, as the Greeks would say, he comes full circle.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. Anyway,
That
enough of my pitch for Kendrick Lamar.
you're now his new PR rep.
Yeah, well, I'm a fan of people who disagree with me usually, which is how yeah.
No, that's an interesting point. The fan of people who disagree with you. I think that's increasingly an important thing, especially for Catholics, to entertain, is the possibility that what we're called to do as we know, this is largely a post-Christian culture now. But we're not called to just, all right, well, let it go to hell in a handbasket. Sucks for them kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're called to engage it. And I think that the whole in the world but not of the world piece, I think it's tough to discern. That there has to be some wisdom and some prudence in that. But at the same time, it's like, if we just look at the culture and everything's terrible, and so we just kind of walk away, and then we're not really doing our job.
Yeah, there was this whole craze over the Benedict option, but I think it was misunderstood. If you really read it carefully, his whole point is that you build this cloister precisely so that you can engage the culture.
Right.
And people took it as, run away, run for the hills. The whole country's going down the hell in a handbasket. But yeah, it's funny. The Cholo situation. Oh, I did. That was, I don't know. I don't want to tell this. But yeah, it's funny when you actually start listening to people, how reasonable and charitable they can be.
Tell the Cholo story, the 4th of July.
Well, I got another story I want to tell.
Okay, tell that one then.
But I will tell the Cholo story because it all really started during COVID, when they started tearing down statues of Catholic saints. Do you remember? Oh, in California, they were doing that all over the place. In St. Louis, they wanted to tear down the statue of St. Louis in Forest Park. And it actually made national news because a friend of mine, not too good a friend because I can't remember his name all of a sudden, got in an argument with one of the protesters, and they had this sort of standoff. But I get really nervous when people start tearing statues down, because whenever they do that, the monks are the first to go. So I asked my abbot if I could be one of those people saying the rosary down there, and he said yes, but the rule says you don't get involved in someone else's fight, right? So if it gets confrontational, you can pray, and that place needs prayer right now, but you cannot be involved in any conflicts. So I went down and I was saying the rosary, and sure enough, it got real dicey. And so I backed up, and I had a bunch of prayers of St. Francis, and I was saying my prayers, let me be an instrument of your peace, and back it up, until pretty soon I look around and I'm with all the Black Lives Matter people. And in fact, I had backed up into the Satanists because they were all wearing black, and I guess I sort of gravitated to that. And there's this black kid standing on my left. He's got dreads and tattoos everywhere. And I look over at him, he looks at me, and I go, "You're not here to say the rosary, are you?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "You're one of those religious people, aren't you?" And I go, "Well, wait, hold on now. A guy can't go out in a hoodie anymore without getting judged." Luckily, he thought that was funny. And so we started talking, and he was like, "Well," and I was like, "Well, why are you here? You seem like a nice guy, a rational guy. Why do you want the statue down?" He goes, I don't care whether the statue comes or goes." He's like, "I heard there were racists that were here, and I wanted to resist them." And he said, "Are there any racists in your group?" And I said, "Well, it's Missouri. Yeah, probably." But but Black Lives Matter is anti-family, anti-Christian, Marxist, pro LGBTQ, whatever. And he's like, well, okay, first of all, he's like, I don't know what Marxism is. And second of all, I am a Christian. So, I don't see what your problem is with me. I'm like, I don't think we have any problem at all, actually. Like, I'll resist racism with you. And I said, but the guy who organized this protest, Umar Lee was his name. And there's a big picture of him in the newspaper holding a scimitar, right? So he's like, I'm like, this is a violent, evil man. And he goes, well, ask him yourself. He's standing on your right. And I'm like, oh, and sure enough, there's this big guy with a big beard and the prayer cap and the whole business. And I'm like, figuring I got nothing to lose. I say, well, Mr. Lee, I've heard you are a violent, evil man. And he says, so where'd you hear that? And I said, the internet. I go, but in all fairness, you were on the news. He goes, oh, and the news is real fair to Catholics. And I was like, God, touche. So we got to talking, and sure enough, he's not irrational either. He's a pretty interesting guy, actually. And we exchanged numbers, and he called me a couple of weeks later to ask about the Catholic Church's stand on marijuana, and then I called him about fundamentalism and Islam, and now we have a podcast together where we disagree about stuff. And so God bless Umar Ali. But I learned then that if you just shut up for a second and ask questions to which you really do want the answers, you can get along with pretty much anyone, I think. In fact, my last gig, I rode the plane to St. Louis sitting next to a Satanist who was
Really?
one of the nicer guys I've met. He's been hurt by the church, or perceives himself to have been. But he had some really interesting stuff to say, and he was going to his so shout out to Rio the Satanist. We exchanged numbers, but never really kind of followed through on it.
You don't have a podcast with him yet?
No, I thought about having him on our podcast. But
Father, what's the name of your podcast with Umar Lee?
Disagreement, not surprisingly. And the most popular part of it is the intro music, because he and I spliced together Ramadan music and Gregorian chant. So it's really cool. It's really got a groove. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, but he was, and tell me what, I'll put it to you, his question to me. He was going to his grandmother's funeral, and his grandmother was a Satanist and an avowed atheist, but they were giving her a Southern Baptist funeral. And he said, should I say something? Like, I've been invited to, he said, I brought some satanic runes, and I thought I would say something at her funeral. And I said, well, because he believes what he believes, and he thinks he's doing the right thing. But I said to him, I think you should do, if I were invited to a gay marriage, I would say, look, this just isn't in accordance with my core beliefs. I really can't be seen to support this. But I will pray with you maybe later. So he went to the I got an email from him later and he said, I went to the funeral. I sat there and I smiled. And afterwards, I said my own little prayers by her grave, and to be honest, his view of Satan and God is the way he talks about Satan. He might as well be talking about Jesus. He's just got things flipped up in his head. In my opinion, he would say I've got things flipped up in my head. So
of course.
And he'd have good reason to think so, probably.
This podcast will do nothing to dispel the suspicion.
Yeah.
Although you never asked for a double mail-in adapter at Ace Hardware, so.
I'm sure I've done some. Well, I once tried to juggle flaming torches with doused in gasoline. That was pretty stupid. And I tried to surf a Hurricane Gilbert, which was a Class 5 hurricane, and that nearly killed me. So I think I'd
Where
say, yeah,
where was
outside of
Hurricane
the
Gilbert? Where is that? Was that Florida or
Gulf of
Texas? Gulf
Mexico.
of Mexico. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To give you a sense of how big the waves were, Galveston built a 20-foot wall along the beach to protect it from hurricanes, and the waves were breaking over the wall when I decided to go surfing. So, yeah, that's another story that's not worth telling.
Did you grow up surfing in Galveston, or is that something you took up
Yeah.
later?
You kind of have to be from the island because Gulf surf is very unpredictable, but there's good surf, especially during the winter and the spring
Yeah, I don't.
and hurricanes.
Right. Well, I don't associate surfing with Texas or the Gulf of Mexico
No,
necessarily. So it's interesting.
no, but Corpus Christi, Bolivar, Galveston, there's I've surfed double overhead, waves.
I don't know what that
They're
means.
just not very well good waves. There's just no there. It's just that they're not very common, and you gotta you. I lived about 6 blocks from the beach, so I got to where I could tell from the sound whether it was up or not, and I'd just get out there, get it in, and then I'd go flat, and I'd have to go home.
Nice. So you got a trained ear, and this then of course is part of the story of the Cholos and Fourth of July in California because you're out there to surf.
Yes. Yeah, I go out there every summer. If you can pay your own way, the abbot will let you take as much as 4 weeks of vacation, but you got to be in a church or a religious place or
Hmm.
whatever. And you got to be in solemn vows too. Um, so I go down to LA and I sub, usually these days I sub mostly at Our Lady Star of the Sea Parish. So shout out to Father Harrigan, traditional mass practitioner and bodybuilder. He
Wow.
actually competed for the Vatican in powerlifting. Yeah,
He
he's
competed
he,
for the Vatican in powerlifting.
yeah. So
I
look
did
him
not.
up when the next time you're in LA. He's cool. He's huge, man.
What's his name?
Great big bald bruiser looking fellow. Father Harrigan. I don't even know. Maurice Harrigan is his name. So
That's amazing.
shout out to him. The only person who's more authoritative than him is the parish secretary, whose name is, I always call her Misty, but her name is, I don't know her name. All I know is her nickname Misty. She's anything but a Misty though. She's in charge.
I was gonna
Anyway,
say she's probably
um,
5 feet 2 inches tall, 110
yeah,
pounds,
yeah.
soaking wet,
She's
but you run.
from she's from Jamaica. No, someplace like that. Barbados, someplace like that. Anyway, uh, but anyhow, so I was there this summer for 4th of July, and the well, the fireworks are phenomenal. I mean, are just the greatest fireworks I've ever seen because they're illegal, and so the city doesn't put on the fireworks displays. The gangs, the local street gangs, put on the fireworks displays for the locals. And then when COVID happened, they started to compete with each other. So Compton competes with Wilmington, which competes with San Pedro. They're like, you can see rich people take helicopters up into and watch from above. Um, and it's, do I still have it on my phone? I do. Yeah, this is what it looks like from dusk till dawn
So
without,
that just
yeah,
goes all night.
yeah.
Wow.
And in every direction you look, it just keeps going. Um, So I went down to Wilmington to visit the Avila family. Shout out to the Avilas, Ricardo and, no, not Richard. Oh gosh, I'm terrible, so bad with names. I used to forget my roommates' names in college. I'll remember. Anyway, shout out to the Avila family who invited me out to their house. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's still going on. And I'm like, I've got to say mass at 7:30. I got to get some sleep. And they're like, well, you'll never get home. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because of the cholos. I'm like, well, what's a cholo? And they're like, well, you'll know when you see him. And so I get in the car and apparently a Cholo, for those who don't know, Cholo fashion is related to Los Angeles gang Hispanic culture, and it involves wearing traditionally what they call a wife beater T-shirt and a flannel shirt buttoned up to the throat, and a bandana, and face tattoos, and long shorts with white socks pulled up together. Anyway, so I make it about 7 or 8 blocks, and sure enough, there's this big Hispanic dude standing in the road saying "not this way," which for ostensibly for safety reasons because they're setting off fireworks, but I think also to keep the cops out.
Right.
And so I turn around and I tried another way, and there's some very tough looking character standing in the middle of the road waving traffic off. So I got within, I could see the church tower from where I was, and there's this big Cholo standing in the middle of the street. So I pulled right up to him. He directs me to the side of the road, says, roll down the window. And so I rolled down the window, and I said, great job on the fireworks, guys. You mind if I do? By the way, this guy has a tattoo on his neck that says, to heck with your life, except not heck, if you know what I'm saying. And it has a teardrop tattoo like in the movies, and the bandana and everything. And he says, please exit the vehicle, sir. like he's a cop. And so I step out, and he says, he looks me up and down. I'm dressed like this. He goes, what the hell are you, Holmes? And apparently there's a difference between calling someone Holmes, which means you don't know them, and calling them homie, which means you do know them and they're a good person. But I didn't learn that till later. So he says, what the hell are you? And I said, I'm a priest. And his buddy who's standing behind him, who has, by the way, a skull, like a Night of the Dead skull tattooed on his face, he says to him, no, you didn't, look at him. And at that point, I kind of panicked. And I said, Benedictine vos omnipotens Deus pater filius. He goes, whoa, 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 whoa. He goes, let me get my kids. And so he brings out his 3 kids, and I bless them. And his buddy goes off and gets his girlfriend and his mom, and bless him. They're on the phone texting their friends. Before I know it, the gang's all here, as they say. And I'm blessing holy medals and pictures of Jesus, and they bring out a bag of tamales and some Coronas and some lawn chairs. It's 7 a.m. in the morning. I still haven't gotten home, and I'm like, guys, like they teach me their gang sign, West Side, Wilmos, what's up? Wilmos, West Side. They also told me never to do it in public, but
They want you to live.
Maybe you can blur that out. Anyway, so I get up to leave, and he's like, well, thanks a lot for stopping, Father. Like I had a choice. And he goes, he's like, I just want to apologize. He says, I got nothing I can give you. And I'm like, oh, man. Like even now I get a little choked up thinking about it because it's such a sort of endearing thing to say. But anyway, so I went back this year looking for the Cholos, and their house was sold and they weren't around. So from what I hear, they live a kind of nomadic kind of life.
Huh.
But again, here's and I learned that from Umar, really, I think, because he like I preached a sermon against Black Lives Matter, and so he said, well, have you ever been to a meeting? And I was like, well, no. He's like, well, before you preach against us, how about you come to a meeting? So I show up. I'm like, there are actually a surprising number of white people there, but I stood out because I was just like this. And they're like, thank you for your support. I'm like, I'm not here to support, just here to listen. And they're like, that's fine. All we want is for people to listen. As Umar says, you don't start throwing bricks unless someone isn't listening, so. And it turns out like they are very conservative. They actually, here in St. Louis, they changed their name to Hands Up United because they didn't want to be associated with what they call the BLT movement, the LGBT movement. And they weren't in favor of legalizing marijuana. They were like, where they're going to build those shops? right in the middle of our neighborhoods,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and they're very pro-family, very Christian. A lot of like these Southern Baptist ministers are very much involved in it, and they're not. And interestingly, they were not in favor of defunding the police. They're like, look, just fire the 4 worst police in each district, and we'll be happy. You don't have to re-educate the entire police force.
Hmm.
You don't have to institute like feel-good programs so you can cover your tail.
Right.
Just fire the worst cops, which frankly, I have no beef with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, they still say a lot of things I don't agree with, but they were like, you know, just start. I was like, well, what can I do to help? And they were like, well, just start asking questions, you know. And sure enough, like it's pretty. It's really. I was at a Sikh conference, and it was in Louisiana, and there was one black kid in the entire place. And so I just straight out asked him, I was like, what's that feel like? And he said, I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, that's cool. I understand. And then we talked about it for 2.5 hours. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, look, my mom's a paralegal. My dad's a dentist. We live in a really expensive neighborhood. He's like, and I know I have to be back indoors by dark, because if they see me jogging by at night, they will call the police on me. He's like, I don't blame them, because a black guy running through their neighborhood is unusual. He's like, but it does get old after a while, you know.
Hmm.
And you know, and I wouldn't have had the courage even to ask if it hadn't been for my, I'll call them friends at Black Lives Matter. So
You tuned
uh,
into a different reality than the one that you came up in and live, and yeah, that's
well,
then it,
yeah, I think most people are more interested. You know, it feels good to fight, but when confronted with someone who wants to authentically be your friend, I think most people would choose the friend,
mm-hmm.
or at least, I mean, at least that's been my experience so far.
Well, and somebody who's actually interested in getting to know you, like
Oh yeah.
everyone wants to be known, seen.
Well, and here's the thing: like we at the Priory school, we had a horrible racial incident, and we ended up hiring a director of equity and inclusion, which I was absolutely livid. So they put me on the hiring committee, and it was my job to trip them up. Like I asked all the worst kind of questions and stuff, and we got this one guy in who. And I was like, well, what problems do you foresee? And he says, well, he says, I don't really see there being problems. He says, as much as it is opportunity and hospitality. He's like, I've come up with this 12-step method based on the rule of St. Benedict. I was like, oh, darn it, this guy, I hate this guy. Sure enough, we hired him. And I walked straight into his office on his first day. I said, permission to speak freely? He's like, have a seat. I said, don't like that we hired you. Don't like your title. Don't like your job. I think your job is to find problems. And if you can't find them, you're going to invent them. And next thing you know, you're going to be preaching to us about white fragility and systemic racism. And he goes, all right, I'm sensing a little anger. He goes, let's start with the scriptures. I was like, this man, yeah. But at the end, he said to me, and John Pierre Misham, shout out to John Pierre, because he and I have become really good friends since. He said, the left, they can have the word gay if they want it. I'll give that to them. But I will not cede equity or inclusion. Those do not belong to the left. He's like, we need to, and again, like, you know, once I started listening to him, he started making a lot of sense.
That's interesting.
So the best hire we've made in the last 20 years is the one guy did not want us to hire.
Well, it's good. It's good that you're part of the committee too, because you could ask the tough questions and maybe weed out some folks who would have ended up being more like what you're afraid that position would end up being. So that's good too. You've written some books. How did that come about? They're delightful. We've had you, my wife and I, who made the appearance earlier on the phone. We had you on our podcast to chat about the books before, but how did you end up an author? Was that sort of something that you'd wanted to try, or is that you kind of gave a little bit of the backstory of the humility rules one where you're in the drugstore and you see the
Yeah.
great advice for teens to love the most important person in the world.
God, it makes me cringe even now. Um, Basically, I write a book on whatever crisis I'm having at the moment. So it was humility, uh, decision making, complete escape from reality, and now I'm working on failure. My
Mm.
favorite failure saints, a book on failure saints. But
Oh, nice.
um, but yeah, my dad's a writer and my mother's an artist, so it was always kind of in my blood. I used to say I wanted to be a playwright. I don't even know why. I but yeah, I've always kind of. I think everybody on some level wants to be a writer. Just like I run into a lot of people who say, I think I've got a book in me. And I'm like, well, go write it.
Yeah, get it out of you.
Yeah. Just like I think there's a little monk in everybody. There's part of my mother. Has all these hip artist friends who think the church is a bastion of ignorance and so on and so forth. But they all think it's really cool that I'm a monk, because I think even there's a part of them that says, oh man, I would love to just seal myself off from the world for a little while and just pray, just
Mm.
meditate or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and there's something kind of non-offensive about monks. I don't know. I think we predate the Reformation. We predate the and the way we convert people, the way Saint Augustine of Canterbury converted England was he just showed up, started a monastery, put a wall around it, and people started looking in and saying, "What are they doing in there?" So
I think there's definitely an appeal, particularly in our current contemporary culture, where the idea of monastic life is so strange, is so
yeah,
odd that it almost sells itself in a way just by contrast.
it
Um,
was I think Chesterton said if you could pitch Catholicism as though it were an exotic Near Eastern religion, people would be amazed at the insights.
yeah,
And I think in a way monks can do that. People, a kid asked me if I was a Jedi in the airport the other day. And it's like, yeah, kind of.
in a sense.
Yeah, only more powerful.
That's right. Far more part. You'd be amazed at what I can do. What are the two books about? Humility Rules and then the Pray, Think, Act.
So I was just thinking, and then I showed him I had the force. But this is here's how you get the force. You do like this, and then you go, and they go, wah! And you go, see, got the force. Hey, sorry, what was the question? I was distracted.
I'll use that. I'll use that technique next time someone mistakes me for a Jedi. Hasn't happened yet,
Yeah,
but I'm sure it's a matter of time.
no.
Um, yeah, the two books. Give us a little rundown of what the two of them are about.
Which two books again? I'm
The
sorry.
Humility
Humility
Rules
Rule.
and the Pray, Think,
Well,
Act.
Humility Rules is based on St. Benedict's 12 Steps of Humility. Except I don't really believe the subtitle is misleading because I don't believe in self-esteem. I don't see John the Baptist looking at himself in the mirror and saying, "You're worth it. You're a good guy. Everybody like you're popular." Um, in fact, the chapters have titles like "Don't follow your dreams," "Put your worst foot forward," "Think inside the box," things like that. So that's Humility Rules, and each chapter. Actually, funny story about that. Excuse me. Um, Originally, when the abbot put me in charge of the chaplaincy at the school. Well, the first thing I said to him was, "Why me? I'm a terrible monk." And he said, "Yeah, you are, but your heart's in the right place." Um, so I decided to give weekly reflections on the rule, and then this became a commentary on the rule of St. Benedict for teenagers, which nobody wanted. Um, and I befriended at one of these conferences a fundamentalist evangelical author. What is her name? She wrote a book called Having a Mary Heart in a Martha World. And I said, can I send you my manuscript? And she said, ugh, what's it about? And I said, well, it's self-esteem, but it's really humility for kids. Or it's St. Benedict for kids. She, oh, yeah, send that to me. Anyway, she wrote me back and she said, number one, you're alienating all of your audiences at the same time because teenagers don't want to read a commentary on the rule. And people who are interested in the rule don't want to read a book for teenagers. So go on Amazon and find what most of the books, self-help books for teens are about, and then try to orient it that way. And that was right about the time I ended up at the pharmacy, and I thought, self-esteem. Then she said, I had designed the cover of the book just as a joke, sort of photoshopping a skateboard into St. Benedict's arm. And she said, there needs to be one of these illustrations on every other page. She's like, this is brilliant. And then the third thing she said was, don't let any chapter be more than a page and a half long. People just don't have the patience for it. And sure enough, like I had Sophia Institute Press, and like everybody wanted it all of a sudden. Father Fessio called me on the phone and asked for it. Wow. Yeah, I know. And thanks to I gotta find it. Mary Hart, Martha World Hart, Joanna Weaver. So shout out to I had to look that up because I really owe her, because that advice was spot on. I mean, she absolutely figured it out. So that was Humility Rules. Pronounced Humility Rules or Humility. And then Pray, Think, Act. What's that? Yeah,
sure. Dude.
Well, that's for the decision-making book. I wanted to, and shout out here to Dawn Eden, who gave me the title. Well, she gave me the title I wanted to use, which I couldn't use, called "How You Dune," which the publishers at Ignatius thought was too cute, but I still think was pretty brilliant. But that's how to make decisions with the Desert Fathers, and because I just love the Desert Fathers. Call them think what you like about them. They were extreme, but they were absolutely, once they decided to do something, man, they did it, and they were decisive, if nothing else. So that's that book. Yeah, go ahead.
The Pray, Think, Act one. That was kind of eye opening. Reading that, I just thought there's
really,
yeah.
Thanks.
In the sense that I'm like many people, I have a hard time actually calling the ball and making a decision. There's
unlike many people.
No, like many people.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
I hope not unlike many people. I'm the only one. Yeah, darn. But the kind of the systematic approach to it was helpful for me, and the reality that it's an engagement of both faith and the intellect. So pray and think. Those are two.
Yeah.
Those are two necessary components, and it's easy for me at least to get into decision-making mode or something I need to discern, and I'll drop one of those two, and not intentionally, but I'll just find I've only been thinking about this, I haven't been praying about it, or I prayed about it a little bit, but I haven't really sat down and thought this through, talked it through with my wife. So it's like the combination of those first two I thought was actually really helpful.
Well, me personally, I act right away. Then I think, that was a stupid thing to do. And then I pray for God to set it right.
That'll be the sequel.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, it doesn't matter what you decide ultimately. Almost no decision we make is of any consequence, even in our own lives. The best thing I read on the whole subject was an article by an atheist computer programmer from like Sweden or something, called "Why You Will Marry the Wrong Woman." And he teaches computers how to make decisions. And then he started thinking about his own dating life, and he's like, it's been so long since I read it, I'm probably going to misrepresent him, but his whole thing is like, I've got 10 years here to find the perfect woman for me. And she's there. She's out there somewhere. The perfect match for me is out there. and I will never meet her. I mean,
Wow.
statistically, the odds of actually running into her at a time when she's looking for a mate, are infinitely against me. He's like, but even if I found her, I then have 40 to 50 years to find a better mate. So he's like, so inevitably, whoever it is I end up marrying will be the wrong person. He's like, and yet, oddly, there are happily married people in the world. In fact, there are a lot of them, considering the statistics. He's like, in the end, he says, I don't know whether he says it or not. I say it. You're going to make the wrong decision. Somebody's going to mess it up for you, either you or someone else. But the happy, like holy, grounded people make the best of it. They say, this is my decision, and they roll with it. And
Yep. And trust it to grace and let God pick up some of the pieces too.
Yeah. That said, there are sometimes you need to quit. I mean, there's no dishonor in that either. I mean, sometimes you just have to quit.
Yeah.
But what you don't want to do is make the decision and then spend like I do, and then spend all my time wondering whether it was the right decision to make, instead of actually living out your life.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Father Augustine, it has been an absolute joy talking
Oh,
to
wow.
you. We're at our.
It's been 2 hours.
Yeah, we're at 2 hours. It's been. I could keep talking for another two. Just keep asking me to tell Cholo stories, but where can people find you? Where can they find the books? Where can they find your podcast? Other stuff that you're up to if they want to start playing along.
Well, if you Google surfing monk, you can enter a whole world that involves me and my things and my YouTube channel. Ignatius Press is a great place to start, though Amazon has all my books. The podcast is Disagreement with Father Augustine Wetta and Umar Lee. Actually, if you just Google Wetta, Wetta, you'll probably get me, because it's not a very common name. I think because most of the Wettas in the history of the world changed their names. When I became a monk, I said to my father, are you sad that the Wetta line will end with me? And he said, why would I want to curse another generation with this name? It's like, and apparently it's even insulting in Spanish. So,
well, so you're wrapping up the show for the Wettas then.
Yeah.
Gosh, well,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for agreeing to come on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I'd like to. That was fun.
Awesome. God bless. And for the rest of you,
Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater Filii Spiritus Sanctus.
Amen.